Welcome to our Career Acceleration Masterclass. Can anyone give me a shout out in the chat window here, just so that I know I'm not talking to myself? Anyone in the chat? I see yes. Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome. Happy hump day, everybody. We're going to get cracking soon. And thank you, everybody who can hear me now. Awesome to see everybody that is in the room here. Let me start presenting my slides if I can do this properly. And I should know this by now. This is probably my 5th webinar I have done, and I am no more deft at doing this. So one day I will. So I think you can see my screen now, the Career Acceleration Masterclass. Welcome. And you should be able to see that Slido link. And my favorite part of these webinars are answering your questions at the end. So throughout this presentation, please scan the QR code or go to slido.com, put in the code JAM5, and you can start entering your questions. I see about 5 questions in there. You can upvote them. I don't think you can downvote them. And I will be sure to answer the most popular questions at the end of today's session. So excited to have everybody here. And thanks, Alyssa, that I'm doing great. I appreciate that. It's always good to have a good pep talk. Next up here. So I always lead off my presentations with this disclaimer that perfection is an enemy of progress. So any errors that you see here, I have been absolved of all those issues. So we're going to get progress here. We're going to give you guys some great actionable tips to accelerate your career, to get more money, to get more interviews, to get more confidence, and to grow your network. So if there's any typos or any other errors here, you can just blame it on the desire to go fast. Next up, the agenda for today. We're going to share my results and my story, how I was not all that special. We're going to talk about why recruiting is so damn hard. More importantly, we're going to talk about, now that you know that recruiting is so damn hard, that how you can beat the system, because it is predictable, and things that are predictable can be learned and mastered, or at least improved. I don't know if anyone masters recruiting. 4th is we'll talk about some real results from real people. 5th, we'll talk about if Kadima might be the right program for you to help accelerate your career. Then at the end, I always like to give away some free advice, free giveaways. I'll give away there. And then we'll open it up with a Q&A. So brace yourself. A lot of excitement coming your way. This is my background, encapsulated in one single slide. So this is my 25-year career. I started in Wall Street after dropping out of a PhD program in psychology. So I got accepted to a prestigious psych program. I was going for a PhD. After a semester, I dropped out. I wound up contracting, temping, got a job on Wall Street, partially through nepotism, partially through my hard work, and worked in finance for about 7 years. Then the book Moneyball came out by Michael Lewis. I don't know if you saw the movie. I was not trying to be Brad Pitt, but if you read the book, I was trying to be Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's. So I figured out how to target the right companies, i.e. Major League Baseball teams. I went down to the baseball winter meetings, and I came back working for the New York Mets and the Toronto Blue Jays, minor league affiliates. Realized that the work-life balance kind of sucks for 14-game homestands during the summer. I also realized that the pay sucked. I actually chose to stay on my unemployment rather than get paid by the Toronto Blue Jays minor league affiliate, because I was getting paid more in unemployment. And because of that, I returned to business school. I got rejected to NYU, and then I got into Columbia Business School. After that, I set my target on a top marketing organization because I was interested in marketing at the time, staying in New York. and top of the list was American Express. So I networked my way into there. I interviewed, and I got hired at Amex. I was there for 6 years. I led marketing and operations teams. Got a little tired of how slow it was in. Yeah. See, Lila, NYU missed out. Yeah, they rejected me the first time around before I got into Columbia. So that's an interesting story. But was at Amex for 6 years. I learned a lot, but they paid me below market, and I know that because every year we had an employee survey, and every year people complained about compensation, and every year they told us that people complain about compensation everywhere. Well, I realized that that's bullshit because that did not occur after I left Amex. So after Amex, I went to Google. After it wasn't easy for me to get to Google, I applied 5 times and I got rejected or ghosted or no response. Eventually, through a friend who knew a friend, I was able to talk to a human being at Google. He liked my background. He put me in as a referral, and I still had to figure out how to interview there. And I had to go through 11 rounds of interviews, but I got hired at Google. I was at Google for 6 years, then left there, worked at a couple of different startups, Datadog and a company called Andela, and realized that startups are inconsistent and do not pay as well. There's always that hope of equity and options. It very rarely actually materializes for lots of different reasons I can go into if people have questions. I left startup space, went back to big tech, went to Facebook, worked there for a year and a half. I enjoyed my team. I enjoyed the food. I enjoyed the pay. I did not love the culture. I did not love my boss. I left Facebook, went to Tableau. Tableau was acquired by Salesforce. And then I was at Salesforce until September of last year. On the first day of fall, I left Salesforce. I call it the Fall of Alan. If anyone's a Seinfeld fan, there was an episode of the Summer of George. The Fall of Alan was when I went all in on Kadima. And now I am full-time on Kadima, helping people accelerate their careers, learning through a lot of my mistakes and insights over my career. Let's see, next slide. And the numbers on the axis here are my real earnings compensation. If you want to see more details about that, I posted my W-2, I think for the last 2 years, definitely this last year on LinkedIn. So you can check out that post. However, even though my career looks all beautiful in that slide, there was lots of sausage making going into that career. And I'll share some of that sausage making with you right here. First off, every time, well, probably the last 5 times I was looking for a job, the first step that I did was clearly identify my goals. And with that, I identified a target list of companies where I wanted to work for. So this was for my job search in December 2018, very creatively titled in my Google Sheet. These are the different companies that I was targeting. If you see here, there are 67 target companies. 5 of them in yellow were the ones at the end of my process of who were the top targets. I wound up getting a couple of offers. I accepted one. That was at Tableau. So the first stage was I really set goals and understood who I was going to target rather than just go blindly in my process. Next up, I spent a lot of time on building outreach, on reaching out to people, having informational interviews. So this is just a random week that I picked during my last job search. The last job search where I actually was hired at a corporate job. This week in February of 2019, I had 23 meetings. The ones in purple are color-coded for ones that were focused on my career journey. 15 of those were informational interviews. If you don't know what informational interviews are, they are essentially speaking to someone where you are seeking information out. You are asking them questions. You are asking them for advice on how they got into the company, what it's like to work at that company, so on and so forth. During this week, I wound up having 8 interviews. It resulted in 4 opportunities, which led to 2 offers. None of those I actually accepted because I wound up accepting a Tableau. Tableau was not on my calendar during this week. It showed up in my calendar a couple of weeks later. In addition, I have used all these spreadsheets to track everything that I've done, and I've realized that this stuff works. So this is just a snapshot from my latest job search. Before I left Salesforce to join Kadima, I thought I was going to go to another big corporation. I started my job search in March of 2021. I left Salesforce in September of 2021. In between those 6 months, I applied to 300 different roles. I had 44 interviews at 27 companies. I got to 20 loops, and we'll talk a little bit about loops shortly. I got 5 offers. I accepted none because none were better than what I'm doing now at Kadima. And nor were they better than what my current role was at Salesforce at the time either. So now we'll talk. So that's kind of how I figured out how to get great jobs at the world's best tech companies, effectively, efficiently, confidently. Now I'll share a little bit of the dirty laundry of why recruiting is so difficult and so hard. So what I learned over my 33 years of working at 29 different companies 29 different jobs at 21 different companies. Recruiting is quite consistent across different organizations. People will do what they're incented to do. So recruiters are just looking to hire, and the hiring manager is just looking to fill the role with someone that fits their needs. So people are doing what they're incented to do, and you need to think what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing. You need to understand how the system works so that you can maximize it and you can optimize for that. You will never be perfect with it, but you can definitely improve. Fourth, there are lots of things that you can control. You can control how quickly you get back to an interview. You can control which companies are on your target list. There are lots of things that you can influence. So when you're being interviewed by a recruiter or a hiring manager, they are ultimately the decision maker of your future. They control that decision, but there are tactics and means that you can influence the decision that they will make in your favor. There are some things that you have no control or influence over. So when you get to the final rounds of interviews, you have no control over who you are competing with. You have no control over the people that you're meeting with, what arbitrary rules that they are using to consider to approve you or to decline you. And I've heard all different sorts of crazy shit. I used to have someone who used to interview with me who would reject people if they use the word synergy during the interview because he just thought it was too corporate speak. I thought it was kind of bullshit. He no longer wound up interviewing with me after I found out that arbitrary rule that he had, but I've seen people with all different sort of arbitrary rules. And what I learned is that this is a learnable skill. You can learn how to accelerate your career. You can learn how to maximize the likelihood that you will land a great job, that you will get the money that you deserve, that you will grow your career compensation and engagement. So now I'll go into some numbers. Well, I talked a little bit about why job searching is challenging and fairly consistent. So at the very top of the funnel, when a job is posted on Salesforce.com or Microsoft.com or Google.com/careers or Facebook.com/careers, within a week, hundreds of resumes come in. Within 2 weeks, maybe upward to 1,000 resumes come in, depending on the role. So that's at the start of the funnel. That's who you're competing with. And that's only if you get your resume in the first couple of weeks. After that, ATS, you might have heard the term, application tracking software. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of recruiting. There's way too much writing and focus on it. And the ATS is essentially a glorified CRM, customer relationship management system. All the words that resume writers are putting on for your keyword search, it's a waste of time. But the ATS is essentially collecting those resumes and allows the recruiter to manually look at them. And the recruiter is typically looking at them in between 6 and 60 seconds, and they are quickly assessing who they are going to chat with. And they chat with about 10 people. And those 10 people, sorry, this should say, and Alyssa, if you can change this at the 10 part, This should be actually the recruiter is reaching out and calling about 10 people of saying, hey, we found your resume and we're super excited to have you hired at, like, we think you're a great candidate for this program manager role at Facebook. Well, they're also telling that to 9 or 10 other people. So while you think that you're special, there's still lots of competition there. The recruiter is trying to assess if you are a good candidate that they can pass on to the hiring manager. Then after the recruiter screen, you get to the hiring manager. At the hiring manager screen, there's usually about 5 or 6 people left in the mix. And the hiring manager is assessing whether you have the role-related knowledge, or as Google calls it, RRK, to make sure that you would be a good fit and have the experience to move on. And if you are so good and you do pass that, you will get to the interview loops. And again, this is a process for the attractive companies, the big tech companies and their brethren and sisters that are like Spotify's and Twilio's and Shopify's. And there's lists of about 80 or 100 companies that are really attractive companies, not just for folks on this call, but for millions of others that are applying. So if you are so lucky to get to the interview loops where you get, in the old days, used to be on site, now it's all virtual pretty much, you will be interviewing with generally 4 people and you're competing with generally 4 or 5 people. So at that stage, there's 3 to 5 people that you're competing with and you're hoping to be the number one. At that point, all you have to do is be the best of the breed. And then if you are fortunate and the arbiters of the interviewers speak kindly to you and you have prepared and are eloquent in your responses to the conversation, you will get an offer. So that's how the process works. I don't think that's too surprising, but maybe looking at those numbers will give folks a little bit of a scale of the odds at each stage. So during that whole process, the companies, the big tech companies, have a decided weight in advantage because they have the insight of who they're interviewing. They know what questions they're going to be interviewing. They see your whole scouting report, and you see very little from them. They know what salary they're willing to offer, and you have very little insight. What we're trying to do at Kadima is level the playing field, level the scale, so that you two have as much of insight and confidence and advantage as the big tech companies do. So how can you beat the system? Throughout my career, throughout a number of different job switches for myself, through recruiting and looking at thousands of candidates in my career, I've realized that these 6 steps are proven to work. They've worked for me. They've worked for dozens of others that have worked with Kadima. Number 1, clearly define your goals. So it's important to understand what you're looking for, what you don't want, and to identify 40 to 60 target companies. On my previous spreadsheet, you saw 67. I like to go a little crazy with that, but 40 to 60 target companies will suffice for most people. Next thing, leverage your strengths. Assess your strengths and play those strengths. So if you are a marketer, get a role in marketing. If you are a customer success manager, get a role in customer success. If you don't know what your role is, talk to some people and find out what your functional skills are and how they translate into roles at a Shopify, at an Asana, at Atlassian. And there are ways to figure that out, but play to your strengths. If you were in sales and you want to go into product, no one's going to give a shit. You get into the company in sales and then you can move around once there, and there's ways to do that. So leverage your strengths and play those strengths. Third part is outreach. Building that network. So I've had 29 jobs in my life. 24 out of those 29 jobs came because of network or nepotism. Didn't mean I didn't need to interview for those roles, although some of the nepotism roles I did not need to interview for. But when I got referred into Google, I still had to interview 11 times. When I got referred into Tableau, I still had to interview 5 times or maybe 6 times. So, but that outreach of identifying those contacts at the companies where you want to work is critical for you to get referrals, which will dramatically increase your chances of getting noticed and also give you tons of insight of how it is to work at that company, what the expectations are, and help prepare you for those interviews. Number 4, you got to work the system. So you need to know where to apply, when to apply, and what to apply for. So when I say where to apply, you don't want to apply in LinkedIn, you don't want to apply in Glassdoor, you don't want to apply in Indeed. It's okay to apply there, but you're missing out on fresh roles and you're missing out on complete roles that are available. So the best way to look for those roles is go to twilio.com/careers or google.com/careers or Facebook or Meta, now they're called meta.com/careers. You go to those websites, you apply there, and that's where you're going to be looking every week to see which fresh roles that match your skills and expertise are posted. And when those roles are posted on a weekly basis, you ask in your head, do I know someone at Shopify that I can reach out to and ask for a referral? Or if not, I'm just going to get my application in there quickly. 5, interview with confidence. And you need to train and have tenacity for this. So if you work this system, if you define your goals, you leverage your strengths, you build the relationships, and you're searching and applying, you will get interviews. You will talk to the recruiter, and that will go to the hiring manager, and that will make it to the loops if you prepare and train for the interview. But you also need tenacity because you are going to lose out on some of these. There are arbitrary reasons. Sometimes you may not bring your A game, but sometimes you might bring your A game and you may be interviewing fantastically and the organization decided to go with the internal candidate instead. Or someone else had slightly more experience or worked at a different company than you. But you need to train and prepare for the interviews, and there's ways to prepare because these interviews are very prescriptive and very predictable. You won't be able to predict every question, but if you come prepared with your behavioral-based questions and other methods, you will come prepared and confident and improve. And then the 6th part, which takes the least amount of time but has the most amount of payback, is high impact negotiation. So once you get that offer, you can almost always negotiate for more. And there's ways to do that with insight, with some tips and tricks that we offer at Kadima. Also, just reading a couple of good books on that. And those books are Getting to Yes, Getting More by Stuart Diamond, and Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. But I can go into lots of depth about negotiations if people have questions about that. So that's a little bit about the 6-step process that has worked for me, has worked for dozens of other people, and now I'm going to share. You saw my results. I'm going to share some results of other people that have succeeded through this process. Here are 5 qualitative testimonies. You can check them out on my LinkedIn page as well. They're all up there. There are about 11 more since this page was screenshot. But here are qualitative feedback of folks that I've helped and followed the system and got great results at Salesforce, Facebook, Amazon, Salesforce, and Dell on the screen. And Connor, I see that you have a question there. If you don't mind putting it into the Slido, go to slido.com and enter JAM5. That's where I'll be answering all the questions. So if you don't mind doing that, I'd appreciate that. Next up, in addition to the qualitative feedback, here are quantitative results of real people that earned $18,000 more at Dropbox, $55,000 more at PayPal, $78,000 more at Facebook, $93,000 more at Amazon. So you can see some of the backgrounds and how long it took people. And also overall, Kadima has been returning 17.8 times ROI, return on investment. So the program works, and we'll talk a little bit about who it's right for. So again, here, once again, we're almost up to the question and answer part. So if you do have questions, I see that some are submitted on slido.com, but feel free to scan this QR code and enter JAM5, and I will be answering questions shortly. So is Kadima right for you? So when I created Kadima, I created it for 2 different types of individuals. One is someone who's in tech but not growing their career as they may expect. So maybe they've been in the same role for 4 or 5 years, not got promoted, not moved up, and they see other people advancing ahead of them. Then the other group of folks are people that maybe working at an American Express, maybe working at a Procter & Gamble, maybe working at a Marriott, and are doing functional skills, whether it be finance or sales or marketing, customer success, product management, program management, and are looking to pivot those functional skills into a higher paying, higher growing industry of tech. So you have one of those two buckets, and then you're someone who wants to get paid what you deserve. You are someone who wants to be excited about your job, and you want to dramatically accelerate your career trajectory. This is who Kadima is for. Next up. So, and then if you meet those criteria, and then if you have these attributes, if you exhibit grit, and Angela Duckworth, a fantastic psychologist from the University of Pennsylvania, talks about grit being a passion and perseverance for your goal. If you have grit, if you hustle, again, like there's tons of jobs open at these companies. I believe our latest tally was around 135,000 jobs open at the 85 companies that we focus on. You got to hustle for these jobs. Once those jobs are posted, they're all on rolling admissions, and they get filled fairly quickly. Actually, they don't get filled so quickly, but the list of candidates get selected very quickly to go on to the recruiter screen, to the hiring manager, to the loops. And if you don't get in there early, you're not going to be even looked at. Third, growth mindset. So we give people lots of feedback, lots of support, lots of real interview feedback for mock interviews and actual real interview feedback. So with that feedback, people that do the best are people that absorb that, welcome that feedback, and learn and grow from that feedback. Fourth, accountability. So we give you instructions, we give you guidance. We do not check your homework, and we do give homework. But the homework is reaching out to folks, applying for jobs, putting together your preparing for interviews and getting things ready like that. We give you the guidance and the templates, but you're accountable for doing it on your own. And then the fifth part is ready to accelerate. So people that are motivated and ready to accelerate, Kadima has proven to work and continues to work better and better. So what is Kadima? What do we offer? Kadima offers confidence, support, insight, and expertise. Interviewing, the job search process is intimidating, is tiresome, is like burdensome. We give you the confidence, support, insight, and expertise so that you can attack it with more effectively and with the support that you deserve. How we deliver it? We give personalized coaching, accountability, and proven systems to accelerate your career. And more specifically, here are the 10 things that we provide. 1, 3 months of unwavering support. So it's a 3-month program. We generally find that it takes people about 3 to 6 months to find a job. But within 3 months, you got the system down, you're working on your own, and all wheels are in motion. Secondly, in-depth onboarding and goal setting. So everybody meets with me for an in-depth goal setting. We figure out where your challenges have been, where your opportunities are, and start to clarify your goals of where you're going to be going. Third, monthly one-on-one coaching. You get monthly one-on-one coaching with me. Set that up as check-ins. And then fourth, weekly career workshop with flexible time. So we have one on Tuesday evening, East Coast time, and one on Thursday morning, East Coast time. And those group sessions people are welcome to join. We talk about, actually people are encouraged to join. We talk about those 6 different phases, break things down, answer questions, and support and provide a community feel. Fifth, you get resume review with specific insider feedback and tips. Those are reviewed by me. I give you feedback. I give you insight of how to write your resume to be easily consumed by hiring managers and recruiters. I do not write it for you. I give you specific feedback. Same on the LinkedIn review. I will give you feedback. I will give you advice. I'll give you guidance of what's working and what can be improved. 7, we offer mock interviews and actual real interview feedback as well. 8, you get unlimited email support. I'll hop on the phone call if needed or video call as needed. 9, you get an introduction to global network of advocates at top companies. So I do not give you my password for my LinkedIn account. But what I do give you is I encourage you to create your own outreach and and learn to fish. But when you see a great role at a company that's a good fit for you and you don't know someone there, and I know someone there, and I know some people at a decent chunk of these companies, I am more than happy to put in an introduction and help grease those skids. However, we do teach you to really build out the network yourself, because your connection and your building of those connections and those relationships will be so much more helpful than a second degree connection. And then 10, this is probably the most valuable aspect. I provide negotiation services. So once you get the job, you tell them that, thank you very much. I'm so excited to get this job at Google. Can you please send me the offer via email? They'll send it to you via email. They all do. He forwarded it on to me, and then we start chatting, and we negotiate for more. And I've been able to get people between $5,500 and $143,000 more. I don't get on the phone. You're going to be doing the talking, but we prepare for it, and you handle those negotiations with confidence, and you get a lot more money. So question is, what's investment? So we've set the pricing to get you a minimum of a 10 times ROI. And as I showed before, we're getting about a 17.8 times ROI. It's actually a little higher now. The time commitment is typically 10 hours per week. And those 10 hours are broken up, those 90-minute workshops. And the other 8.5 hours are you setting up your target list. That occurs at first. But most of it is outreach, having informational interviews with individuals, applying for jobs, for the right jobs, preparing for interviews, actually interviewing. Our customers, our clients get lots of interviews, and that's where your time is spent. So the cost is time of 10 hours per week. We suggest as a good rule of thumb, and also either 3 payments of $1,750 per month for the 3-month program, or you can save $250 if you pay $5,000 all up front, and that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. But as I say here, we have never turned any client away due to financial constraints. So if everything else matches what you're looking for, and you have these attributes, and you do not have the money, and we have never had anyone sacrifice shelter, food, education, or anything like that to join Kadima. So let us know and we can figure that out. So now the free giveaway for those that have stayed for the 37 minutes so far. Small gift of time for you today. I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice that you can take right now and start using with your job search. 1, negotiations begin at the first phone call. So while I get involved after the offer is actually delivered, negotiations often start with the first call with the recruiter. When the recruiter asks you how much you're looking to make, your response should be, I'm looking to get paid fairly based on the scope and the impact of the role. That will usually shut them up. If they continue to push on you, you can say, hey, I don't think compensation will be an issue with me joining Stripe, just using Stripe as an example. And that will usually stop them. If they ask you what further, I've only heard that once, you can come up with a number, but it's much better to duck that conversation. And the companies are not allowed to ask what you make now. And I find so many people forward that information, and you're chopping your knees out from under you because you probably don't understand how much compensation is available at these large tech companies that pay salary, that pay bonus, that pay RSUs, restricted stock units, and the equity really adds up. So do not reveal your cards. Second up, don't take ghosting personally. I posted this actually on LinkedIn today. Ghosting will happen. It will continue to happen. It's because the way the recruiting is set up and the incentives and the KPIs, the key performance indicators that recruiters are measured on. Don't take it personally. Shake it off. I was ghosted by Facebook before I got the job at Facebook. That was probably 2 years ago, 2 years before I applied. I've been ghosted probably by hundreds, if not thousands, of companies. This shit's going to happen for lots of reasons. I can go into the reasons why, but just trust me, ghosting will continue to happen until the recruiters and the company are measured on the candidate experience, and none of them are measured on the candidate experience. And the definition of ghosting is a company is pursuing you. They're like, oh, VJ, I see that you're, I don't know your background, VJ, so I'm just going to use some examples here. VJ, I see you're a great project manager. We're looking to fill a role in project management here at Salesforce. I'd love to have you interview for this role. Then you start interviewing. After the first round of interview, they're supposed to get back to you after a week. No response. You follow up with a recruiter a few days after that, and you say, hey, recruiter, I'm really excited about the role. I haven't heard back from you. No response. They basically turned into a ghost. They disappeared. That shit happens. It happens. It probably has happened to you, VJ, I'm guessing. And you might not have known what the definition, the term was. But ghosting is when all of a sudden this recruiter or this company, which is wooing you and talking to you in very high praise, all of a sudden disappears like a ghost. Third, so don't take it personally. Keep on plugging away. Third, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, the best roles are hired on rolling admissions. And that's why it's so critical once you get your target companies to look at those first party job sites, the sites of meta.com/jobs and Microsoft.com/jobs and Twilio.com/jobs, SAP.com/jobs. You get the point. But once those roles are posted, you need to be looking at the job board once a week, this first party job board, and you see a new role that hasn't been there in the last week and it matches your criteria. You use your referral if you have it. And if not, you get your application in. You need to do that because within a week or two, that recruiter has taken that batch of resumes and starts calling 10 of them. And then they pass those remaining 10 to the hiring manager. And any resume that comes in after the fact, good luck getting it looked at. So that's all I got for you. I left you with those 3 gifts. My ask for you is if you found this presentation interesting and you think that with a little help and support that you too can land a fantastic job at one of these world's greatest tech companies. And I can tell you there's 135,000 jobs open and lots of you can do this. Almost everybody can learn how to do this. If you're interested in applying for one of the spots in the Kadima program, go to kadimacareers.com/jam and fill out the quick survey, and we will be back to you within hopefully 2 days. I usually get to them on the weekend, but go do that. And now I will go to the Q&A. So I am looking at Slido, and let me try to put this on my screen, and let's see if this works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. And of course it does not. So hold on one second. Let me just fidget with my stuff. Okay, then I'll present this. There. I think that works. Okay. And some of the questions are getting cut off, so I will read them. So why does ghosting happen? And I talked a little bit about it before, but the reason why ghosting happens is because recruiters are measured on filling the role and on speed. And they don't really care if they filled the role with Joseph. They don't care about the 4 other people that were applying. Once Joseph accepts the role, everybody else can go to the wayside. So the recruiter doesn't really care. They don't get measured on the candidate experience. They may or may not get back to you. So that's a big reason why ghosting occurs, and it will continue to occur. Next up, does LC really matter? I am not sure what LC means. If someone who wrote that can say what LC is, because I'm just not sure what that acronym is. If anybody knows what LC is, if they put that in the chat, I will try to answer what LC really matters. So I'm not sure what that means. Next up, what languages should we focus on preparing? I'm assuming that is computer science programming language. So let me clarify one thing about Kadima. So Kadima focuses on the non-technical roles at the high-tech companies. So if you look at Google, which has 160,000 people, about a third of those employees are SWEs, software engineers. And at Amazon, they're called SDEs, software development engineers. I do not focus on those areas. There are several reasons why I do not focus on those areas. One, I never interviewed for technical roles. Secondly, I don't know how to interview people technically. I can't help people technically. Third, there's tons of different programs out there that help people on those technical interviews. And if you need some suggestions on that, I'm happy to follow up with you on that. So I think you were talking about computer languages, and I would just look at the job description. That probably gives you the hint. However, languages, if you're talking about foreign languages, the more languages you speak, it usually offers more opportunity. But I don't think what that question was asking there. Let's see. Next up, do they still ask those goofy puzzle questions like how many golf balls fit in a school bus? No, they do not, even though I prepared for that back in 2011 for Google. But they do ask some hard questions. So a question that I used to ask people at Google was, what do you think about the idea if Google all of a sudden began charging $5 a month for Gmail? Do you think that's a good idea? How would you size that market? So that's not a goofy puzzle question. That is sizing the market and thinking about a problem analytically. And that could be a question that you receive. But they do not ask how many planes are flying over New York City right now. And they used to ask questions like that. Or I don't even remember, like how many dimples are on a golf ball, or how do you get a nickel out of a blender, or something like that. I don't know. So they do not ask those goofy puzzle questions. Most of the questions are behavioral-based interview questions. If you don't know what behavioral-based interview questions are, you can Google it. But it's also like a question of, tell me about a time when you had to answer. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult stakeholder, or tell me about a time when you had to build a team from scratch. And then they want you to answer it in a certain way using the STAR technique: situation, task, action, result. So anyway, I'm not going to go into tons of detail of that, but goofy puzzle questions, not too often asked. What would blow away a hiring manager? So I'm guessing you're thinking in a positive way here in terms of really impressing and not shooting the hiring manager or anything like that. But the hiring manager is looking for someone to fill the role, and that you will be reporting to that hiring manager as well. So they're looking for two things. How is your experience going to fit into the role? And secondly, how am I going to be able to work with this individual? So do I have some rapport there? Are there some commonalities there? Does this person, a third potential thing for some better leaders, but this is more rare, is this individual offering diverse perspectives that are complementary to the existing resources we have on the team? I see that less often, but what will blow away the hiring manager is if you can give them confidence that you can do the job, that you will make them successful. So a question I sometimes like to ask, it's a little bit on the brown nosing side, but in some situations it works okay. If I came in here, what could I most do in the first year that would help you get promoted in your role? So the hiring manager wants to succeed. They care a little bit about you, but you are just a means to their success. Some hiring managers are selfless and will care about you, probably 20%. I don't know the exact number, but more of them are looking out for themselves and their career. So they want to know that you are bringing the skills, the capabilities, and are easy to manage. Next, what foundational aspects of tech should should an inspiring cybersecurity professional with zero background in tech focus on? Don't focus on any of that then. Focus on what you're good at. You are not going to be able to read a book and do Coursera and do Khan Academy and all of a sudden become a cybersecurity professional that will get hired at one of these organizations. Instead, ask about what you're doing now. What are you functionally doing? And apply those skills to the roles that are being hired at the company. And if you do have a desire to go into cybersecurity, once you're in Google, then you can dabble around with your 20% project. Once you're in Salesforce, you can learn to get more involved with the PII, the personal identifiable information team, and the security teams there. But anything that you are, if you have zero background in tech and you want to become an aspiring cybersecurity professional, think about what you do have background in, what you do have experience in, and play those cards, leverage those strengths. Otherwise, like if you think about it, going back to the last question, what would blow away a hiring manager? Why would a hiring manager hire someone that has not had the experience in cybersecurity if they're looking for cybersecurity expertise? And any course is not going to demonstrate that to them. What is required to become a mentee of Kadima Careers? So we call them clients, not mentees. But to become a client of Kadima Careers, the first step is to go to kadimacareers.com/jam. And then there's a quick survey to fill out there that gives me a little bit more information about you. And then we will get back to you. And we'll either say, hey, you are a great candidate for our Career Accelerator program, the 3-month program, or we'll say you're not because of X, Y, and Z, and we'll give you some free advice and guidance on that as well. So that's how you do it. It's just very simple. Go to kadimacareers.com/jam and fill out the form there. It's pretty simple. And Alyssa, again, thank you very much. Put the link right there so you can call that up. Next question. What if I don't want to work for a giant household name company? My career has been with small tech startup places, no promotion in 15-person company. So I would ask you why you don't want to work for a giant household name company, because there's lots of benefit of working for a giant household name company. Some of those benefits are they pay well, they treat their employees well, they give you lots of resources, there's lots of internal mobility, there's lots of great benefits, and it looks damn good on your resume. The reasons why people should not want to work at a big tech company is if they are not thrilled with bureaucracy and politics. But frankly, that shit happens at every company I've ever worked at. Hopefully not at Kadima. And Alyssa can maybe allude to that. But I'm trying to create Kadima without bullshit, hypocrisy, and politics. But every company, from a 7-person venture capital firm that I worked at to a 20-person baseball team, not the team, but the front office staff, to 2 different startups, they all have politics, they all have bullshit, and they paid me less. So I'd rather, if I'm going to deal with the politics, bullshit, and hypocrisy, I'd rather work at a big company that looks good on my LinkedIn, that will open more doors for me in my career. And those companies are also hiring a lot more people. Large companies have more staff and have more job openings. So there's more opportunity there. Let's see. Is this for unemployed people or people looking for something better? Both. I don't know what the percent breakdown is, but I helped unemployed people move into Salesforce, into Allstate, into Dell, and I helped employed people get into Google, into Microsoft, into Amazon. So it's for both. There's different strategies associated with both of those situations based on lots of different factors, but it's all about getting more. It's all about accelerating your career. And if you're temporarily in between jobs, it's about getting you back on the right step. It might not be at Google next. There might be some stepping stone roles before you get there, but that's okay. It's all about getting more and forward progress. LC equals lead code. Yes, thank you. And that is a technical term, and I am not totally sure what that is and what codes that people need to get. But yes, now I recall that that is a lead code. And as I shared, I do not help with. The only technical folks that I do help get roles is engineering managers. So if you're good technically and you don't need help on the technical side, I can help you get jobs. But if you need help with your lead code or a hacker rank or things like that, I'm not your guy. Can I help someone looking for governance risk compliance job at FANG? Yes, yes, and yes. I worked in DMO, data management operations at Facebook, that work closely with risk and compliance and governance. I can tell you that those organizations are interesting to deal with, but yes, I help people there. Again, like I help with folks. If you think about Facebook or Google, they have 100,000 employees. 1/3 are engineering, 2/3 are sales, operations, finance, and governance, risk, compliance, and so on and so forth. Yes, I help with that. Because those sort of interviews are the same way as the other interviews that I talked about. The panel-based interviews are quite similar. The loops are quite similar. So the Kadima method works for those roles fantastically. Do I think getting a Google certificate as someone new breaking into tech helps? No. If you're interested in it, if you have some time to play around with it, if you want to see if you like it, yeah, that's could be interesting. A much better use of time is finding people that work at Google that have some common background or some commonality with you and reaching out to them and having an informational. And that will be a hell of a lot more useful than getting a Google certification or a PMP certification or any other degree. Even like going back to school for an MBA. I went back for my MBA. It was a very deliberate choice in my case. Sometimes going back for MBAs and schools and certifications make sense, but it's a hell of a lot better to be doing the outreach and applying for the roles and having those conversations. Doesn't mean you can't do both, but going for certifications is not the most efficient and effective use of your time. Do you just have pricing for just negotiation services? Yes, I do. So that's the only a la carte offering I do offer. So if you do have an offer in hand, if you do get a verbal offer from any company, do not accept it on the spot. I made that mistake when I went from Amex to Google. They offered me $62,000 more. And when Puneet, that's a guy's recruiter's name, who called me at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday evening and told me the ridiculous offer, I was like, where do I sign? And that was stupid. I was a schmuck. It's back in 2011. I've learned a little bit. The better thing to do is once you get an offer, you say, thank you. I'm excited about the offer. Can you send it to me in writing? They will send it to you in writing. At that point, reach out to me. Or even if you got the verbal offer and you want to talk about the strategy there, reach out to me at alan@kadimacareers.com. Let me know that you have an offer. We do offer negotiation services. I only take, I will give you free advice if I can get you more than $10,000. We'll talk about what the cost is for that, but it's very reasonable. You wind up keeping 85% of all the incremental, and you can pay back the 15% back to me over a 3-month period of time. But yes, so short answer, I have negotiation services. If you have a verbal offer, ask for it in writing, and then shoot me an email at alan@kadimacareers.com and say urgent. I got an offer or something like that, and we're going to have a better process for submitting those. But at this point, just shoot me a note. Next up, sorry, I missed a point that I made. What's the most important thing to focus on apart from certifications? The most important thing to focus on, there's not a single one, but maybe the most is outreach, building the network in these companies. And I know some people might say, well, I don't have the network. I didn't have the network either. I graduated from a state school. I was in finance before I went into baseball. I had no contacts in baseball. I built out my network in baseball. When I went from baseball to marketing, I didn't really have a lot of contacts in marketing. I built out my network in marketing and similar. So the most important thing to focus on is building your network, building those relationships. That will help. That will give you tons of insight. It will build advocacy. And again, 24 out of my 29 jobs came because of who I knew, not what I knew. And I'm guessing most people in this room have gotten jobs in their career because of network. So the network works. Next question. I think that was duplicate. So I think I've answered all the questions and we have 3 minutes left. So if anybody has any final questions, you can drop it in the chat. You can drop it in the Slido. Otherwise, I can give everybody 3 minutes back and I've got through every question. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you spending 60 minutes of your valuable time with me here at Kadima. Don't forget, like, you own your career. No one else is going to give a shit about your career. But if you want to accelerate it, go to kadimacareers.com/jam, fill out the quick survey, and we will get back to you. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your attention, and hope you learned something good today. Catch you later.